to another week. My name's Jess and this is my channel, Jess's Modern Life. So for this video, I'll be doing a week's worth of dinners. They're all easy, budget friendly, pretty healthy, but not too healthy that the kids won't eat it. I hope this gives you guys some inspiration for the rest of your week. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. Let's go.
The first recipe I'm making this week is a curry sweet potato and lentil soup and a no-knead bread. So for the bread, we'll need 4 cups of plain flour. So just dumping that all in there. So yeah, this one's a no-knead bread. It's, super easy option if you guys like it. I've got to be honest, not as good as my normal bread that I make. A little bit denser, but still really delicious and impressive if you're having guests over. So this recipe does involve some time still. You'll probably still need to do it about 5 hours in advance. So just created a little well here just to put the rest of the ingredients. So the recipe I have, which I'll link down in the description for you, like all the other recipes, does say 2 cups of hot water. So for me, hot water sounds crazy. That's going to kill the yeast. So I did 2 cups warm water and it turned out really well. So warm water, it's kind of just like where you can put your fingers in and it's warm, but you can keep them there indefinitely. You don't need to pull them out because it's too hot. So you can see I take a while to get the right temperature. Now also need 2 teaspoons of yeast. I always just use a big massive thing, guys, and keep it in my fridge. I don't know what that equates to packet wise, probably 1 packet of yeast would be good, and 2 teaspoons of salt. So another thing I found interesting about this recipe is there was no sugar, which usually you kind of do to have the yeast feed off. So yeah, but worked out pretty well. So this is just kind of mixing it around a little bit. It's not going to come together as a ball or anything like that because again, you're not kneading it. So once it's kind of been mixed and combined, there's no kind of water sitting at the bottom or dry flour anywhere. Then you kind of just cover it and leave it somewhere warm to rest for 2 hours. And you should notice it start to puff up a little bit. Okay, so that's what it looks like after 2 hours. So you got to punch the air out. You can see my hands are getting quite covered in it. It is quite a sticky mixture. So I do add a little bit of flour. I know it's no knead, but you do kind of need to create it into a ball. And I just couldn't imagine how else you'd do that other than on the counter with some flour. So I guess a little bit of kneading happened, but basically just trying to create some sort of ball out of it, I guess, so it looks a little prettier and it's kind of together a bit. So it is, very loose mixture, so don't worry, that's how it's supposed to be. And then basically, once I've formed in a ball, I'm going to cover that again and rest for another hour. So while that was resting, basically cooked in the oven, 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes covered and then 10 minutes uncovered. So next recipe, so this is the curry sweet potato and lentil soup. So I'll talk you through everything as I add it in, but that's basically a little bit of a look at the ingredients. So with the apples, we've got 1 green apple. So look, I've diced it up fairly small. If you're going to blitz it, then obviously you can have it a bit chunkier. But I don't have one of those immersion blenders and I can't be bothered using a proper blender. So I just chop it up fairly small. And my family likes kind of a chunky soup, so we just leave it as is. So you see next, I'm also chopping up 2 onions. So again, finely diced. If you've got a food processor, you could totally blitz it up that way. That would be a lot easier. So some of the, so then also we do have the sweet potato. So it does say 2 large sweet potatoes, which you'll see I chop up soon. Doesn't really mention how many cups that equates to. Look, I've kind of done different sized sweet potatoes before. It's not a big deal, guys, especially with soups. Don't worry about exact amounts. Don't stress about it. So I just basically use up what I've got. So you can see again, fairly small chunks. They're not all the same size. I'm not going to spend 10 hours chopping. This isn't MasterChef. So it'll do. So then in with the curry powder. So this is your generic Keen's curry powder. I don't know about for all my state friends what you guys have got, but yeah, nothing particular. So we are basically dry roasting the spice first. So I did do didn't write down the amount, 2 teaspoons I'd say. I probably would have done 2 tablespoons of curry powder. It's all of the recipe anyway, guys. So I dry kind of toasted that first, and then I added in the oil. Because you do have to really keep a good eye on it just to make sure it doesn't burn. But that is a good way to release the aromas. So then we chuck in the onions and the apples, and they can kind of all brown up together. Just cook it for a couple of minutes until the onion becomes translucent. Again, just making sure to stir often, just because that curry powder can kind of stick and burn to the bottom. So we've got ginger. So it is supposed to be garlic. It is supposed to be 3 garlic cloves. I don't have fresh garlic. I just kind of used a big teaspoon, and then 1 inch of fresh ginger. Again, I had to use the dried stuff, but it comes out delicious. You don't need to stress about that stuff, guys. Okay, so I had to change to a bigger pot. Mine was not big enough. So I've just added in the sweet potato, coconut milk, so 1 can of coconut milk. Also going to add in the dried lentils. So I really do like these dried red lentils. You could potentially use canned lentils and just add it in later in the process, so I guess they don't get too soggy. But I just find dried works perfect for soups. So if you can find it, I think it's definitely worth it. You guys know me, I'm all about substitutes, but just don't know how the canned one would go with this. Now for this recipe, you can make it completely vegan. I just got this chicken stock super cheap at the discount grocery store, so I just thought I'd use that. But I often make it with vegetable stock, and I actually think it's better with vegetable stock. So yeah, completely vegan if you want, guys, which is, you know, nice to have every now and then. #health. So we've got 5 cups of vegetable broth. So I think I only had 4 that was in there, so I did 4 cups and 1 cup of water. Honestly, with the curry powder and the garlic and ginger, it's got so much flavour. If you have to substitute and have a couple of cups of water, it's not a big deal. So basically just let this one cook for about like 40 minutes or so. You can really leave it as long or as short as you want. It does thicken up as it cools down, so keep that in mind. So there we have the soup and the bread. You see the bread still turned out pretty good. I will link a second recipe for bread that I love to use that does involve kneading, which I think is slightly better. Up to you guys. Second recipe. So we have this Lebanese spiced chicken on wraps with coleslaw. Yeah, and hummus and yogurt. It's delicious. So I've got 500 grams of chicken breast here. So I've just kind of done it into strips. The seasoning I'm using is Baharat rub. So I got this from the reject shop in Australia for $1. So that's why I'm using it. But I am going to link this amazing spice recipe for these Mediterranean skewers, which would also work out really good for this. Or of course you could use like a Moroccan seasoning mix. Anything kind of Middle Eastern, guys, whatever you're feeling. So I did add a little bit of lemon juice. I didn't have much. I do like to add lemon juice to my marinades. It just kind of helps tenderize the meat. And of course olive oil, because that's going to make everything stick. And I just went rogue. I felt like adding some yogurt, so why not? I had a little bit of Greek yogurt left in the fridge, so that's what I've used. I don't know, what's that? Half a cup? This video is going to be interesting for you guys. It's basically me winging it. But they all turned out delicious. Just shows you don't need to take life too seriously, guys. Just taste your food as you go and you can make it work. So I'm just massaging in the marinade. And I believe I chucked this in the fridge for a couple of hours, but however long you've got, no big deal. So you can see I'm cooking it up just on a flat top. If you've got kind of like a George Foreman grill or any of those things, that'd be awesome to use. I do like to trial a piece first just to check on my marinade and taste it and then adjust accordingly. So this is a slaw. So this is my go-to slaw. I use it for fish tacos. I use it for tons of stuff. Always kind of the same marinade. So dressing. So yeah, just a coleslaw mix, undressed. I usually add, let's say, equal parts olive oil and white vinegar. Again, just to your taste. Start off with less, and then you can always add more. If you kind of add too much to begin with, then it's kind of hard to back up from that. Bunch of salt. That's a lot of salt. Tasted good though. Off hunting for some other ingredient, who knows? Sometimes I like to get tricky. Oh, white sugar. So it really does make a big difference, I find, in slaw dressings to add that little bit of white sugar. So good. You can add that in by adding in fruit. So with our fish tacos, I actually add chunks of pineapple and that adds a really good sweetness, but I find it just makes such a big difference. I did add pepper there because my husband's obsessed with pepper. Everything pepper, but I didn't end up using it. Didn't think it needed it. And of course, then adding some citrus. So as you saw, ran out of lemon juice, so used lime juice. It was really good with it. So mix everything around so it's all properly dressed. And then of course I taste it. And that's when you can adjust accordingly. Although I seem to have nailed it this time, so got lucky. You'll see my dorky thumbs up throughout the video. Don't judge me. Yeah. Yeah, so I got these like Lebanese flatbreads on sale, chucked them in the freezer, defrosted them. So you can use any sort of wraps, or you can even do it as a salad. Doesn't matter. So I also had some hummus. So I really love this combination of kind of like the Middle Eastern spiced chicken with hummus and slaw. So I like a lot of hummus. So I just lathered the bottom with it. I think it's good to put that first because if you kind of put the dressed salad on the bottom, it would kind of seep through, whereas that creates a sort of barrier. Whole bunch of salad. Look at those colours. I look so healthy. Are you guys proud of me? There's my chicken. So I basically just cut it into strips. Little chunks. Now I'm going to add yogurt dressing on top as well. So I didn't actually make it for this video. It was left over from a previous recipe. But it basically, usually for my yogurt dressings, you can add grated cucumber. Didn't have any, but I just used Greek yogurt, lemon juice, salt, pepper. Just drizzle that on top. And then because I'm a monster, I also add sriracha on top. Why even bother cooking new cuisines, Jess, when you're going to add sriracha? I don't know. It just goes with everything, guys. I love it. Anyways, this is a massive hit with the whole family. Excellent. Ooh, so my next recipe. So this is actually a family favorite. I've been making for ages. So easy. I think it's like 4 or 5 ingredients. So first thing we've got is the ricotta and spinach agnolotti. Yeah, ravioli, whatever. Pumpkin. So I do prefer butternut pumpkin, butternut squash. but that was what was on sale. Just plain tomato passata. You don't need a pasta sauce, and pesto. Yeah, again, you could substitute the pasta for potentially a slightly different type, but I really love the spinach and ricotta flavor with it. So if you can get that in whatever shape or form, definitely recommend it. So you can see I'm just chopping up the pumpkin into, I don't know, what is that, an inch-size pieces. Basically going to cook the pumpkin first in the water. So I think I usually cook it about 15 minutes. You want it tender but not falling apart, because then you're going to add the pasta and cook the pasta in with it as well. And that pasta usually takes 5 minutes or so. So yeah, you don't want to make sure the pumpkin's too cooked because you don't want it to become complete mush. So that's me just testing it. So drained it, everything's all done. Adding in my pesto. So I guess it's just a traditional basil pesto. I accidentally got a basil on rock at this time. Still worked out delicious. So I use about half a jar. Make sure you have leftovers though. If you are going to reheat this for further meals, the pasta does dry out a little bit. So make sure you overdress it if it's going to be for a meal prep. If it's going to be a fresh meal for the family, you're all going to eat in one go, you don't need to worry so much about that. So, added in, what was that, like half a jar of passata. Again, less is more. You can add less and always add more later. So, I think it's about equal parts passata, pesto, which I usually do. You can see I'm smushing up some pieces of the pumpkin. That usually happens when you stir it anyway, but I do like to make the pumpkin or squash as part of the sauce. Yeah, just mixing all together, and of course tasting as I go, and then you can adjust the amount accordingly. Sometimes I do get pasta sauce for this, which is why I've got the Italian herbs on the side, but I actually found it didn't need any other flavoring. It was, perfect the way it was. Another great just vegetarian meal. Really hearty, really filling. Again, quite a lot of veggies in there. You could chuck in some fresh spinach for some extra veg, and a real crowd pleaser. So there it is. Oh, that was amazing. Such a good meal. Our last meal for the week. So I decided to do something, I guess, a little bit fresher. I do like rice dishes sometimes. So this was a Thai spiced rice dish. Look, I went rogue with some of the ingredients. It was loosely based off one. So sriracha in place of chili, I guess. Sweet chili sauce. Also got some fish sauce. So they didn't actually have any salty elements in the recipe. So I found that made a huge difference. Garlic. You can see my little helper there. You saw lime juice. Green beans and 500 grams of turkey mince. So I'm just cooking up the turkey mince just by itself first of all. That's just the way I personally like to do it. Breaking it up into little bits. Of course, you could use this with, it'd be amazing with a piece of fish. You use this with chicken pieces, whatever. Tofu. You use tofu. So adding the garlic. The sweet chili sauce. So I find with any of these sort of Asian dishes, you really need the sweet, salty, sour spice. So if you make sure you've got all of those, so you can really kind of make it up with what you've got. So if I didn't have sweet chili sauce, I definitely could have added in some brown sugar, would have worked perfectly. If I didn't have fish sauce, I would have used soy sauce for the salty element. And again, I kind of just made up the amounts a little bit and then tasted. Like I said, less is more. add a little bit, taste it, and then you can adjust accordingly. So this recipe didn't have any veg either, but I really, really like green beans with any of my sort of Asian dishes. I don't like to cook the green beans too long, so I only cooked it for a few minutes with it in there. And that lime juice we saw before actually gets added at the end. So if you kind of cook with lime juice, it can kind of go a bit of a funky taste. So I like to add it right at the end when the heat's off. And then, you know, you can quickly taste. If you need to adjust, you still can while the pan's hot. So there we go, decent amount of lime juice. I think the recipe said half a cup, so I had quite a bit. And of course, we just had it with plain steamed rice from the rice cooker.
Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.